Hello, Birch. Well, good morning, dear Dharma friends. I'm glad you've come to the party. It would not be much of a party without you. Anybody here for the first time? Please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, welcome. Would a few people who've been here for a while raise your hands if you'd be willing to talk to these people if they approached you? So that we won't love bomb you.
Raise your hand.
Oh, I'm going to be busy. I'm yeah. So I've invited Paul to do a welcoming statement and speak of our land understanding. And you want to come do it, Paul? I asked him at the last second, so he's cramming the microphone.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul. I'm with the DEI committee. I'm also one of the teacher trainees. And on behalf of the entire community, first and foremost, we'd like to welcome everyone here. We welcome all people of every age, ethnicity, cultural heritage, and religious background, socioeconomic group, ability, sexual orientation, and gender identity. So long as you are here to join us on the journey of awakening, you are most welcome here. Power, okay. The DEI committee also has a lot of intentions and statements you can read on the website, one of which is our land acknowledgement. And what that essentially says is that PIMC honors and recognizes that the place where we gather is ancestral land for all of the indigenous peoples of what we now call Oregon, who were displaced for the benefit of American settlers. We set the intention of welcome, and as we take this journey inwards, we get to examine all of our conditioning, whether that be individual or societal. All of it is worthy grist for the mill. And the fruits of this journey helps us to mindfully engage with how we show up for ourselves, each other, and this world we live in. Welcome.
Thank you. There was just a question on the chat. What's the third party that this is being sent to? It's YouTube. So, and we have 41 people on Zoom and 55 people or so in the room. It's a lot. Why are you here on a Sunday morning? Don't you have something more entertaining to do? Well, most of you know I'm Robert Beatty, and I'll be doing the first half of this morning, and then Jim Dalton will do some mindful movement, and then Erin Schneider, who is a member of our teacher training corps, a dear friend, and a now hospice physician, will be talking with us, to us, about how her spiritual practice has been essential in her work with the dying, and how working with the dying is fundamental and profound in her spiritual life. She was also an ER doctor for how long? 13 years. Good God. 13 years. So she's been on the front lines and really has an amazing story to tell us of her own journey. And I will leave it at that. She's part of a 3-year training program. So is Paul. Who else is here? I guess that's all. Dan is online here. Hello, Dan. Poisson du jour. Okay, so I didn't say my usual thing to the newcomers. I'm really glad you're taking action on your spiritual longing. And I hope today is really helpful to you. In fact, my deep, sometimes spoken hope is that it totally transforms your life. And if PIMC is not it for you, please keep your momentum going and find the community which would be it for you. Because here in Portland, there are representatives of really all the major traditions of the world. And the one piece of advice that I like to give is, and it isn't uniformly true, but find a place where the leader or leaders have 30 years or more experience in the tradition. Because there's something about duration. This meeting today has a 2,600-year-old history. So there's been a lot of weeding out in the teachings and a lot of clarification of what really works. Okay. So I will begin today, as I sometimes do, with the refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Buddha, refuge in the Buddha. One thing else I like to say is this is not a religious tradition. This is not a religion. A lot of Buddhism, maybe most around the world, is practiced as a religion where they worship the Buddha, but that wasn't his idea. Instead, we might understand refuge in the Buddha is not in Siddhartha Gautama, who lived 2,600 years ago, but is in a part of us that is awake. That is the Buddha, that we are that. And the Dharma, the teachings, and the way things actually are, I take refuge in reality. And thirdly, I take refuge in Sangha and community. But even that isn't this community. This is a nice place to come. But this place is unstable. It's not going to exist for all that long, right? Because it exists in time. But there's a community of practice and a community of experience of other beings, other persons who have awakened, who have had the experience. The Buddha had his awakening experience, and then he taught for 40 some years in order to give others the opportunity to have the same experience. So, probably more words than needed, but I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows us the way in this life. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. I have a novel idea. Please take your hand and form a little something like this that could turn a knob. And then reach to your heart and turn the knob counterclockwise, and gradually realize, see yourself that, oh, I'm not that body. Oh, oh, look at this. I'm everyone in the room. Whoa, look at that. And keep going counterclockwise. And, oh, I'm also the building. Oh, keep going. And good grief, I'm the city. Oh my God, it turns out I'm everyone on the earth, and I'm everything on the earth, and there's the planet, that's me. Keep going. And oh, I'm the Milky Way galaxy, and I'm not only that, I'm all these hundreds of billions of galaxies. And oh, what a relief to remember who I am. And then we can shrink down or stay open as we will. Easy, huh? Nothing at all to worry about when I'm all the galaxies. Or please take a comfortable upright posture as what you think of as your separate self. Bring your worries and your excitements and your fears and your joys, all of your neurotic behaviors, your compulsions and addictions. The sweet love between you and your children or other people. Bring your irritations and your anger, your hopelessness. Here we are. Oh, time for the children to go. Okay, thank you. I forgot. Have a nice time. I'm a little jealous. It looks fun in there, right? Oh, well. The great thing for us is that we don't even have to try to have fun. That gets tedious, doesn't it? You know that vacation you went on and you tried to have fun the whole time and you came home ready for a vacation? Let's just take the vacation now. Let's land. Let's notice that the body is remarkably alive. In fact, in our experience, it's nothing but life. And where is that life experienced? We could call it the face, the hands, the feet, everywhere awareness goes in the body. There's sensations. The simplest instruction I could offer would be just don't do anything. Just be the awareness that you are. Any thinking that comes along, just watch it as you might watch clouds in the summer sky. From another perspective. And what the Buddha suggested, it said, is why not have a home base, a primary object in the breath? And when you can, rest in this breath, the sensations of the rising and falling of the abdomen. No violence is needed. The effort is more one of intention, effortless effort. Resting in the rising and falling of the chest and abdomen. It's possible to have a sort of half-hearted or mostly thought awareness of the sensations of breathing. And there's quite a spectrum of getting closer and closer, more and more intimate, where the breath becomes more and more tangible, the sensations are more and more known. If we add a little drop of love, we bring loving mindfulness, loving, grateful, kind presence to the actual sensations of in-breathing and out-breathing. And each breath we discover has a beginning, a lifetime, and an ending. Most likely you'll discover that there are some thoughts, maybe a lot of thoughts, maybe mostly thoughts. Please don't start a war with your thoughts. We have enough war. We have enough violence. Why not instead do something that works? When awareness awakens with thoughts, notice them for what they are. And perhaps come home to in-breathing and out-breathing. Or perhaps notice the aliveness, which is your fingers and thumbs. how real, how tangible, how visceral are the sensations of in-breathing and out-breathing. This is the moment of our life. An old saying, resurgence, came up in my mind a few weeks ago. There isn't a dress rehearsal. This isn't a dress rehearsal. This is it. Either I'm alive and awake or I'm not. The experience could be mildly pleasant or mildly unpleasant, could be very pleasant or very unpleasant, could be kind of neutral. We can observe that quality of pleasant, unpleasant, liking, disliking. And we can default to something very simple like sensations in in-breathing and out-breathing. And various forms of wandering mind. Rest back into the present moment. You can notice, is the mind calm, quiet, or noisy, restless? Is it content or does it want something? Does it dislike something? I once asked a friend who was a monk of almost 20 years in Thailand, what's your experience of concentration and mindfulness? And he said, well, you might think that you're walking through a forest. It's a beautiful afternoon, not too hot, not too cold. And you come upon a hammock. And it's clearly a hammock that's welcoming to you. It's at just the right height. It's in dappled sunshine. And you turn around and you sit down on it, you make yourself comfortable. Maybe you lie diagonally so you'll be flat rather than in a U shape. And then you rest there. There's some intention, perhaps, to stay home with the breath. The Buddhist meditation manuals speak of initial application. The decision, okay, now I'll pay attention to my breath. And then a very gentle, sustained application. I'll stay here now when I can. And it happens in the context of this hammock, this resting back into the present. It doesn't require any furrowing of the brow or tightening of the gut or clenching of the teeth. It's just here, aware of this. There's a profound longing that we all share. And it's to belong, to be loved and loving, to be kind. And this kindness starts with oneself, really. And it can happen right here and now with, there's a very simple mantra that I like. The words are, I love you. I'm here for you. With your name at the end. And you can let your intuition decide, suggest. what would be the most nourishing things that your own consciousness, your own heart could say to you? Like, you're already okay. You've always been okay. I'll be with you through thick and thin. I'll be with you. I love you, with your name at the end. And anytime you want, you can rest back into the breathing. And please now allow awareness to open in your buttocks and thighs, where the chair presses against them or the cushion. Notice the life in what you think of as your hands, in this that you take to be your face. In the eyes. And before we open the eyes, we might expand this wish of kindness toward ourselves. Every other person in this room, in this Zoom meeting, in fact, on the planet, longs for the same thing. So we might imagine some way a golden light from your heart expanding into the room. Maybe making a dash for home where there's someone that you love or a pet that you love. Incline the mind toward kindness. Think a kind thought toward a family member or a friend. And then holding that or practicing that in some way, please now become aware of the intention to open the eyes. And then let your eyes open, or open them. It takes effort, actually. And seeing happens, and you can be mindful of seeing. And to the degree that it's comfortable for you, I invite you to look around, turn around, see, meet some other eyes. You could even be bold and reach out a hand if you're close. Make contact. A fist bump, that's a good one. Candle, do you have anything to announce from the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion group? Hang on, let me invite you in a minute. This is a Burmese monk's bowl. It was my bowl when I was there very briefly in 1979. My teacher, Tongpulu Sayadaw, sent it with me, which was a very weird thing. Maybe he knew something I didn't know. It's here as a symbol of a transformer, in a way, that transforms your disposable income, your generosity, into a Dharma center. And Dana, the practice of generosity, is the foundation of a spiritual life, or it's one of the foundations. And the reason for that is that whenever we go like this, we're moving out of I, me, mine, and we're moving into us. My daughter and her partner, David, gave me for Christmas 24 plastic bags with $10 in each one and a little, a meal and a drink, sort of horrible sweet thing, but it's good for you. They keep you alive and warm, and some other goodies. And then a copy of Mary Oliver's Wild Geese. And I'm now down to 3 of them, because it's wonderful as I go through the world, you see someone, and there are so many people in vast need now. And to have something easy and compartmentalized. And on a couple of occasions I've had the opportunity to watch from my car as they read Wild Geese. And it's a pretty nice thing to watch them do. So anyway, there's all kinds of ways to be generous. And one of them is go online, become a monthly donor for PIMC, and help us keep this thing going, because lives are transformed here. This is not a lightweight organization that doesn't change the world. It really does change the world, person by person. Candle, please. Candle from our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. It's on.
Greetings, everybody. Nice to see you all. I'm also one of the guiding teachers, facilitators here. And in speaking of generosity, I would like to mention the generosity of so many people in our Sangha community who have come together to volunteer for things, and the formation of our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion group has benefited the community. Noel, who's not here now, helped found the youth program. And we also, Kat Saleh does the Be Queer Now online on the 2nd and 4th Sundays, and that would be tonight. Our most recent addition, I don't know if Kat's here, is the BIPOC mindfulness meditation group. And it happens on Mondays online. And the last Sunday of the month, it's at 3 o'clock in the afternoon here in person. So if you identify in the LGBTQIA identities or any variety of identities that we all hold, if you are interested in coming to the BIPOC group, you can go online. And see if I have anything else. Tuesday afternoons, well, it's evening, is Trina Trong, and she has a meditation group here in person. So right now, besides our Sunday, that Tuesday evening is the only in-person group that we have, which is really nice to be able to come together again. And any interest in these, you can look on the bulletin board through here. There are QR codes to see what's going on. And also in the line of Donna, there's a Venmo opportunity back there. If you don't want to go online and register your whole credit card, you can go through the Venmo. And on the bulletin board, you can find all of our teachings from PIMC under the YouTube account. So thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts here.
All right. So now I'm going to invite Jim to come up and do a little movement, mindful movement. And then Erin and I will be back for the last half. After that, for those of you that are here for the first time, if you want to stay, there's coffee and tea and goodies and some very fine people to make contact with.
So we get in touch with our contact with the earth, sensations in the bottoms of the feet. And we've been working with loving, spacious awareness for the last 40 minutes. Let's see if we can adapt it to the physical form we seem to occupy here. So if you would like to just pretend you're walking and just do a walking in place gesture, and then bring a narrow-minded view to this. This is my body. This is my hand. This is my heel and foot. And then pause. What if it's the body? It's the body swimming in this ocean of chi, this loving awareness that fills the whole room. And when one person, the leader, starts moving, we move. It's not my movement. It's the movement of the body that's healthy and helpful. And it exists in this spacious, loving awareness that fills this room and fills each room of the folks on Zoom. Robert took us on a little trip back to the source of everything. So instead of me moving my arms to help me relax, we are building harmony in our Sangha across all the Zoom locations and across the world. And then there's this loving awareness right here. And if we reach across, look at our palm, and then let the other palm face the earth, it can be my gesture, separate from everybody else. I'm moving my hand, and there's a cloud that's moving across the sky, and another shadow underneath. We switch, and it's my gesture for my tension release. But what happens if I focus on the sensations of this body? It's harmonized with every person in the room. We are moving with loving awareness. Doesn't take any effort. We just surrender to our already present connectedness. The practice that Robert led us in during the meditation was focused on loving awareness centered in the heart. Can we feel that centeredness in the heart of every person in the room, every person on Zoom? And then rest. And just one more time, or one more gesture. If we interlock the fingers and rise up with a good breath and exhale, inhale again, and then touch the clouds. Again, start with the idea that these are my hands opening my joints, relaxing my hips, and then shift, release, and we, as a Sangha, rise with loving awareness. Exhale with loving awareness. Inhale. As a Sangha, all of us swimming together in loving awareness. And release. Bring your hands to your heart. Thinking about this connection, this ocean of chi that we're swimming in. I'm grateful for each person that's contributing to this harmonious movement in loving awareness. Thank you.
Lest I forget, these plants here are to take home with you. Jennifer, my wife, has a lot of plants. She kind of went crazy at the beginning of COVID, and they've taken over our house. So please take them. One of them has a bonus. It's actually got a cut glass container. So it's a special bonus. All right. I want to do this and then introduce Erin, and then it's all yours. Well, maybe introduce Erin first. I have such a privilege to have Erin as a friend. And when we started talking about what she's going to talk about here today, every time we have, actually, the conversation has been so alive and profound and inspiring. So you're very lucky to be here. And I'm just going to do this as a kind of intro. Some of you will recognize it very quickly. From the Buddha, topics for frequent recollection. I am of the nature to age. I've not gone beyond aging. Is that true? Is it really true? Is that not just some story somebody made up? Fake news? I am of the nature to sicken, to fall ill. I've not gone beyond sickness. Is this true? Is it really true that I can really get sick? Or that I will really get sick? I am of the nature to die. I've not gone beyond dying. Is this really true? Even me? Is it true? All that is mine, beloved and pleasing, everyone that is mine, beloved and pleasing, will become otherwise, will become separated from me. Is this true? Could this really be true? I am the owner of my intentional actions, my karma. I am the owner of my karma, heir to my karma, born of my karma. I abide supported by my karma. Whatever karma I shall do, of this shall I be the heir. Thus should one frequently recollect, said the Buddha. Come on, man. Now, let's see if we can get this on. Let me turn it off first.
Testing.
Yep.
Great.
Yeah. Let me take this. I get it. You go ahead.
It's a habit, isn't it? A little bit of,
Too sloppy?
no, yeah, it's better. It's better.
Okay.
Good morning.
If it's a problem, I'll give you the other.
Okay. Thanks for that wonderful introduction. We are dear friends. I met Robert 10 years ago on a retreat at Brighton Bush when I was seeking, going through some stuff. It's a great time to find a meditation retreat. Are we back up? Are we back up?
We will be in a minute. I just gotta get this done.
How many of you have been coming to the center, even if it's off and on, for more than a few months? Okay. And we still have a few new people who are hanging in. Sorry about the interruption. Testing.
Good.
Okay, great. We're back. The five recollections that Robert just talked about were very useful at a time in my life that I was having a lot of loss that I was facing. And he had given them to me on a little card with Ruth Dennison on one side and the 5 recollections on the other side. And I went to that card so many times. So I encourage you, if you're going through any sort of difficult loss, to look them up, and just helps to remember. And how fortunate are we to be sitting here and well enough to come and be here with each other. I've spent my career working with people who are not so fortunate, either in the ER or the hospital or in hospice. And so I just wanted to note that. And as I talk about, and we have a dialogue about, so I want to leave plenty of time for questions, these subjects and emotions, notice what comes up. Almost all of us have had some sort of loss, and there's memories of people, pets, relationships that we've lost. There's emotions, and sometimes there's pushing away because it can be uncomfortable. And so just notice all of that, because that's part of the practice too. So I want to start with also from the Buddha, the Diamond Sutra. Thus should we look upon this changing world. All component things are impermanent. All component things are subject to change. See all of existence as a star at dawn, a bubble in a stream, a flash of lightning in a summer cloud, a flickering lamp, a phantom, and a dream. I read that at my mom's celebration of life to a lot of people who weren't Dharma practitioners, so I was sneaky that way. I have been practicing medicine for 13 years in emergency medicine and now 3 years in palliative and hospice medicine, and did a fellowship in between to transition my career. I mostly have practiced here in Portland, and now I live in Bend, and I'm full-time palliative and hospice physician. When the year 2020 and the before times were ending and a new era was beginning, I was helping and being with 4 of my dear relatives as they were all ill at the same time. And we had a really tight-knit, beautiful family. We were all here in town, and we're of Japanese descent. So there was this tough, rugged individualism that's a Japanese trait. My grandma, 95, a survivor of incarceration in an internment camp. My aunt and my mom and my dad and 1 cousin and myself. That was our family. I have a few half siblings also, my sister Catherine and a brother Michael from my dad's previous marriage. And my sister had been dealing with ovarian cancer for 6 years. So treatment remission, as ovarian cancer tends to do. And she's a nurse, a neurosurgical specialist at Southwest. And so we were trying to spend the time that we had together, because she knew that with each cycle of treatment, there was less and less time between the next cycle of treatment and remission, recurrence. My mom had renal failure, and so she was going to dialysis and just getting kind of weaker over a period of about 7 years. And my dear grandmother was probably the strongest of the bunch, and she was facing some dementia. And so it came to pass that in the midst of trying to be with all these people in my life, that we then had this thing happening where, what is this thing happening? It's come from, we think it started in China and now there's a case in Seattle. And so the pandemic started. And I was on a trip with my sister in Colorado, where she was visiting some of her friends for the last time. And my mom called and said, she was very short of breath. And she said, Erin, I think I'm dying. And so, of course, we were trying to do what we could to keep her out of a hospital because we didn't know what was happening with COVID. It didn't even have a name yet. I think it was mid-March of 2020, early March. And so we flew home, and indeed my mom was very ill. She was hospitalized. There was a very strange feeling in the entire hospital. Nobody quite knew what to do with what was coming. And so we took her home on hospice. And we had a lovely couple of weeks together. And then my mom passed away. And I think watching her go through the death that she experienced was, it was really difficult. We didn't have maybe all the resources that hospice would normally have because we were dealing with a lockdown. And I think they felt that I'm a physician, and so I could help, I could do a good job in treating my mom, but she had a difficult death, and that was very hard. And in a way, it caused brokenness. I broke inside. My grandma followed her a few months later, and my sister, who had helped with both of those losses, died about 2 months after my grandma. And so I learned a lot. And I was also just barely hanging on. There were times that I would lay in bed and really not want to be here anymore. And I didn't realize that grief could do that. And I also realized that emergency medicine was much too chaotic for what I was facing. And I started to really gravitate towards spending time with people who were dealing with chronic illness and life-limiting illness as my relatives had. And so I said, I don't have anybody left that I'm really taking care of here. And maybe it's time to just make a change. And I applied for a fellowship in hospice and palliative medicine and moved to Nevada for a year to train. And I think when you have, yes, Robert wants to remind me that when we talked about this, I told him that I reflected on a writing from that time, and it felt, the grief and everything that had happened felt like annihilation. And I don't know if anyone has ever lost somebody that's so painful where you feel that you are annihilated, but it changes you. It makes you reevaluate everything. And so I realized that most physicians have a passion to help others, and they really care about what they're doing, even if the system kind of makes it so that we're very rushed and we don't have the time we would like to spend. But when you can approach a bedside and I know what watching someone die from cancer feels like, who you love, that's a different thing to bring. And I think a lot of us come to hospice and palliative medicine from that place. We have had some sort of experience or experiences where it becomes clear that the most aggressive care that we're trying to give as a medical system is not working. And now we need to turn our attention to this next chapter of life, and where all humans deserve to have just as much care in that chapter as they did in all of the others. And so hospice and palliative medicine is we look at them kind of under the same umbrella. Palliative medicine is very misunderstood in a lot of ways. People often think of it like it's what happens when there's nothing else to be done medically. But really, palliative medicine is a branch of medicine that formed out of the need to pay attention to every domain of distress and suffering that somebody might be going through when they have a life-limiting illness. So that can include mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical needs. And to do that, we have a team of people that we go into the clinics and go into the hospitals and round together so that we can attend to everything that might be going on. And the best time for people to engage with palliative medicine is actually when they get their diagnosis, because there are things that come up that I think the general medical community is not addressing as well, because it's we're trying to cure you. And so the emotions and the spiritual needs and all of that can go by the wayside. And it's not the other physician's fault. I just think there's just not enough hours in the day, and many times they don't have the training. Also, when we're attending to someone's needs as a whole person, including physical suffering that can come up from treatments, it helps people tolerate treatment better, whatever their treatment is. So we like to really get involved early, and that's the best benefit. And hospice is a program that's for the last 6 months of life. So if two physicians feel that it's highly likely that someone might pass in the next 6 months, then hospice is a program that again brings all those disciplines in to help care for the whole person. And sometimes we're wrong. We're often wrong. And sometimes people come off hospice. And sometimes we find that with really good attention to whole person care, things that we didn't think could get better start getting better. So people can actually sometimes live longer with a hospice program. So I just go through that because I encourage you, if you have people in your life who might need palliative care, to come and kind of assess what's happening in the big picture and give a little extra support, that it's for people who are undergoing as aggressive treatment as we have, all the way to have decided to focus on comfort. We have not grown up in a culture where dying and facing the process of dying is a very comfortable topic. And we see the results of that when people are facing serious illness. And the fear, the thing I see the most as a palliative physician is this fear that comes in, and it's the fear of families of losing their loved ones, as well as the fear of the patient not being able to really face what's happening. And so a lot of it is sitting with folks where they are and helping them from a place of what's real for them at the moment. So acceptance as the antidote to suffering. And for those of you familiar with the Four Noble Truths, the idea of acceptance as the antidote to suffering sounds an awful lot like the first and second noble truth and third noble truth. And so we're coming from this lens of Buddhism and understanding the Four Noble Truths. There is suffering. There is a cause of suffering, which is often non-acceptance. And there is a path out of suffering. That is the basis for where I do my work. And it's the only thing that helped me when I was facing the loss of my dear women in my life. And it can be hard to bring that into a hospital room because I try to be very conscious of not bringing any sort of spiritual views to people who may already have their own spiritual views, or that may not be what they want out of the interaction. But there are things that are very helpful. Being a human is hard, isn't it? Robert said that many times. It didn't quite go as we thought it would, right? It was pretty unpredictable. We feel this shouldn't be happening. And that is part of the suffering that we all experience, no matter what we're facing, is should this be happening? Why is this happening to me? Why does the car not start? Why did I get this diagnosis? The unenforceable rules, as Robert says. What are the unenforceable rules? Being with people that you don't want to be with, not being with the people that you do want to be with, having experiences you don't want to have, and not having the experiences you do want to have as the cause of suffering. So sometimes I bring that in to conversations with patients and families, and it can just help, like the 5 recollections, it can just help soothe the moment when there's a really hard time with acceptance. I've found that most people are not afraid so much of being gone. There's some questions around what happens afterwards that none of us can answer, right? People are afraid usually of the letting go process and the dying process. And there's so much that we can do that folks are often not aware of to help with the stress and pain around that. There's medications, there's spiritual care. Coming down the road, there's psychedelics. Very interesting part of our practice is how that will fit in. There's all of these things that we can do to help ease the suffering of the thing that people are the most afraid of. We're dying a little bit all the time, right? Our cells are constantly turning over. In 2 weeks, our body will be very, very different from how it is now. And dying is a part of life. And it is integral to life. If creatures, if living beings, sentient beings never died, we would quickly annihilate ourselves, right? So it's a part of life. And what I've experienced is through that pain that I went through and what I see others going through, when you can accept this piece of it, when you're a person who's really in pain from grief, or if you're a person in the hospital bed and you're watching things disappear that you used to be able to do, and you start to have this turn of, well, what do I still have? What's left? I have people coming to visit me. I have my senses. I can feel. People start to really amplify their senses in some ways. And also with grief, what do I have left once you get through the really dark time? What's here? And then you start to live really a lot more fully often from that place of what is left. I'm wondering if anyone has any questions or thoughts at this moment.
You spoke about bringing acceptance to people of other faiths, and it occurred to me that some of their faith may not jibe well with that. And I'm just wondering how that looks to you, or how that looks when it actually happens. Maybe you could elaborate a little on that. And if you have to sort of suppress your own beliefs at times, just interested in hearing more about that.
That's a really good question. Meeting people wherever they are and asking the questions, I think, are the two key pieces there. So we've had at times Native American families, families of all faiths and all different backgrounds, and there is often a distinct difference in culturally and religious background of what people believe happens as you're dying, what people believe happens after death. There's a Native American tribe that we have patients from that in Central Oregon, where they don't speak of the dead for a year after death. And so when we look at taking care of a whole family structure in hospice, which bereavement is a central part of what we do after someone dies in hospice, you do have to be really careful to understand what the beliefs are. And it comes mostly from asking, how do you cope with difficult things? What gives you strength? And it could be nature, it could be sitting in silence, it could be a religious figure, it could be being with friends. So we get all sorts of answers to that question. And then, are you using that to help you cope now? So what is their structure of facing the impossible, and do they have that in place now, or do they need a little help to get back there? And then we have non-denominational chaplains, both on our hospice team and palliative team. And we have at times called to an imam or different faith rabbi, and often the patient will have their own in those cases, but having them come in as well. There was a second part to your question. Did that answer it?
At times suppressing your own
Right.
beliefs.
It doesn't feel like it, because in medicine we were trained, actually in medicine we received no training at all on how to help people face difficult things, especially from a spiritual background. So I think it's this thing that most physicians avoid, not knowing how to respond. I think the toughest piece is the very strong belief in miracles that we encounter sometimes when it's very clear that the person is going to die and they're going to die soon. And what we're often balancing is also the trauma of the team. So there's many different things at play, and we have to be sure that we know what our biases might be. It's all about the patient, their beliefs, and what their values are. And we help them understand what their care options are in light of that. So if a person wanted full treatment all the way to the end, which involves chest compressions and invasive procedures, we know that's going to be hard on the staff. And we know that they're going to need some extra care, but that is the patient's wish. And that's what they feel they need in their dying process. And we, with very few exception, do honor those wishes. So I think that's where it's most difficult for me personally, because in the emergency department, we did a lot of resuscitation at end of life on folks who really it was clear they weren't going to either survive or do well with these procedures. And it can add to kind of a collective trauma of working in environment like that. And you just have to be aware of your biases and what you're bringing into the room. Oh, great. Would you be willing to read it for me? Oh, okay, great. I don't know how to,
I think just let me speak. Can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear
Oh,
you.
good. It's Dave Mayer, Erin.
Dave?
Yes, I'm up over here on the screen, over your left shoulder.
Oh, now I see you, Dave.
Um, First, I just want to reiterate what I've told you before, is I think the work you do is amazing. I admire you tremendously for what you do. It's just incredible. But you know, in conventional medicine, when you're a doctor, the vast majority of your patients get well. And in your life in hospice, the vast majority of your patients don't. As you said, you know, it's the rare exception, I don't know how rare, but certainly the exception that someone actually survives longer. And I can't imagine you doing the work that you do and having a sense of who you are as a person, that you don't, you know, fall in love with your patients, and to have them to go through that kind of grief on a constant basis. How do you deal with that? How do you, I can't imagine.
Thank you for the question, Dave. We, of course, love our patients. And in this field of medicine, I've had more capacity to love my patients than in any other field of medicine. And I tried quite a few when I was doing training, everything from surgery to OB to pediatrics. The opening of the heart and being able to spend time with patients and their families and really connect with them on this level about the most important thing that they're experiencing in their life can be painful at times, especially when I see my sister or my mom or my grandma or my aunt, who a year later died of breast cancer that was very aggressive. So I, in some ways, do bring these phantoms in with me. My mom said, there's a heart in you and a heart in me, and we'll always be together. So I bring all of them in. And when one of them is really manifesting in a patient, that can be very hard. And I've feel through my own loss that I've been through the hardest of the grief. And so there's something that happens, and I can't really explain it or put it into words, but where you come out of your own pain, maybe because you've done some work or it's been enough time, and you can sit with others' pain. And I can't explain what it is, but if we couldn't do that, then we wouldn't be able to be of service. I think the word is compassion. The Buddha said the compassion is the heart's natural quivering when seeing another person's suffering, or another's suffering. Could be anything suffering, but I think the compassion piece allows you to be an observer and love a person, but not be in the experience with them. I think sometimes empathy, which is really feeling what the sense of feeling what they're feeling, is not always helpful. That's where you can get into a little more, get pulled in more to where it becomes a little more difficult to be of service. But I will tell you that this does happen, and sometimes I need to take a walk through a garden or do some more sitting or think about the 5 recollections. Thanks, Dave. Yes, we have a question. Robert, you're getting your exercise. Would you?
So, excuse me, getting over a bad cold, I'm sorry. Uh, so my question goes like this. In 2006, I died. I was dead for about 50 seconds, thereabouts. I remember all of it. It was in a hospital. It was at Providence. They didn't expect it. They didn't treat me well. Long story short, I died, came back, remember it all. About a year ago, we lost someone very important to my husband and me. It was our chosen brother who came here occasionally, Austin. He died, it took about 3 weeks. He wasn't expected to die when he went into the hospital. But he kept getting worse and worse until they discovered that he had lymphoma, just barely starting. A tiny little bit of lymphoma. They said, great, we'll be able to get him treated. It'll work out just great. They got him transferred to OHSU, and he died the next day, very, very quickly. And I've been sitting with that, with Austin's death, and it's been very difficult for me. And I guess my question is, what does one do with such sudden deaths? My own, which turned out to be transformative for the hospital, not to mention the people that were part of it. The nurses ignored me leading up to my death, and then I died. And I had one come and talk to me for about an hour when I got through with sitting in the ICU for a while and then got back into the more like the stand down unit. He talked to me for about an hour and he was like really freaked out. I was the only person who'd ever died under his care. And then dealing with Austin, it was so sudden. And I'm wondering what one does with such sudden deaths. How does one cope? No, my own death was very sudden, and then Austin's death was very sudden. I haven't known quite what to do with his. My death, I'm figuring it out. His death, it's been very difficult.
It's painful, isn't it? Yeah. I asked that question many times myself, but it was, what do I do with all of these deaths that I could see coming for so long? And I haven't really, I don't think there's an answer to what's the easiest way to lose someone you really love. There isn't. Yeah, painful. There were times where people said, this will transform you. You're going to take these experiences and really grow. And I was very annoyed by all of that because I didn't want to be growing or transforming. I just wanted to have my family back. I think time is the ultimate teacher, right? We're dealing with everything beginning and ending all the time. And the only thing to do when you're hurting the way you are is to sit in the pain. Grief is such a strange process for what comes up. Sometimes it's just pure agony. Sometimes you're laughing because you have this really funny random memory. For me, it was really bad regret and guilt. I don't know why. I should have done more. I could have done more. My mom needed better treatment. That was a monster that came up, and I just was stuck in it for a long time. And then it just kind of cleared. Regret as a fear of the past. How silly. The past isn't even here anymore, and here I am spending most of my day fearing it. Right. So it's the whole catastrophe, grief is. And there's nothing to do besides just be in the stages. And then when the thoughts get too dark, such as, I don't know if I really want to be here anymore, then really having people around you who can help you realize you need to get a little support with this. Yeah, but I'm so sorry for your loss. And the passage of time will help. And you are where you are. Acceptance as the antidote to suffering. The first noble truth. Second noble truth. If someone wants to speak, they can. Otherwise, is it in the chat?
They typed it out.
Oh, okay, great.
What sort of self-care do you support yourself as a care provider? What do you recommend for family and friends supporting the dying? And what do you suggest for the dying for the self-care?
Those are really great questions. It's going to be different for everybody, right? So asking the dying, what do you need? What do you need to feel more comfortable physically? What do you need in terms of, when we ask the question spiritual support, the questions around what gives you peace when you're facing something really difficult, and can you do that now? So helping folks to get to the thing that gives them peace, whether it's being able to be outside a little bit or meeting with a spiritual teacher or whatever it may be. Some people are, I want to watch this TV and I don't want to do anything. Okay, great. We can keep the TV on. The caregivers. So the answer for the dying is, what do they feel they need? And how can we best make that happen? And sometimes it's a little more tricky because you can tell someone is really wrestling with something, the existential distress, and they'll say they don't need anything sometimes, and you help them along by, well, what about if we just come visit a little more often? Just try to come up with little ways to help them open a little bit so they can see what they need, and then you can help them get there. For caregivers, well, for me, I can speak to my experience. It was often having enough breaks. So in a long illness, it's making sure that you have people who are coming to relieve you, so you can just take a walk or get a little exercise or just have a little mental break, because it is really a tough job. How many in this room have been caregivers? Yeah, it's so tough. You so want to do well. Sometimes the worst of you comes out. The thing that why am I not more patient? What is going on? Sometimes your best efforts don't get the person where you want them to be. Like, I'd really like them to just be more at peace, or to just be this, or to just be that, and to just be healthier, to just live a little longer, or be a little stronger if we just do these PT exercises, maybe. So there can be all of these expectations on yourself and on your loved one, and it's a really tough job, especially if you don't have a lot of relief. So I think knowing yourself, asking yourself, what would I need to have to be able to do this from a stronger place and keep doing it? What do I need to do this marathon? And for healthcare practitioners, we've been struggling with this question really, most of us our whole careers, but really acutely since 2020, because there are professionals leaving the practice in scary numbers. And I think we're seeing signs of the healthcare providers, nurses, techs, physicians, the whole spectrum saying, this is what I can do. This is what I can't do. I need to have set limit hours. I need to have more control over my working environment. So I think that is often the biggest thing that healthcare workers can do, is really put their foot down around what I can do, what I can't do. I need to stay healthy for myself, my family, and my patients. It is not a failing on a caregiver, be it healthcare worker or family member, to be experiencing the signs of burnout. It's not because you didn't do enough yoga or meditation, you didn't exercise enough. We're working in a system that is expecting quite a lot. And so it's on us to stand up for what we can do and what we can't, I think. Hi.
Deeply moved by the eloquence of your talk, and having been online with you over these last 4 years, I think of you often in your journey and the light you carry in all of this. It's very inspiring. Just riffing off what you've said, I'm part of a project up in Victoria that's inspired by some of the movement here in Portland around end of care planning. Mm-hmm. And there's a real great queer, culturally informed process. And we're doing the same thing up in Victoria and Vancouver area, and looking from an HIV perspective, because we've got a history of trauma and pandemics and all the rest. All this is emerging very quickly. Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering, like, how can this organization here, PMIC, how can we be doing, through our own practices, be developing processes where we can actually be more prepared going into the inevitable? All right. I'm just wondering if you have any insight to share there. I know in Canada, 51% of Canadians haven't even written a will, 40 and older, right? Most of us just don't know how to go there alone. Mm-hmm. And I'm just curious what you would say about how we could be doing this more effectively together.
Thank you for the question. It's a really important question. I worked in New Zealand for a year when I was first out of residency, and it was very clear that they were starting to discuss this process in primary care clinics and GP clinics with people starting in their 40s and 50s. So by the time they actually reached the emergency department, most of them knew what they wanted in various medical choices. So we don't do a very good job about this. I think the most important thing is, from a Buddhist perspective, also your own self-study, right? So we are talking about it, which is different than maybe more than 99% of America this morning on Super Bowl Sunday. So we're talking about this, and we're not afraid to ask questions and talk about it and sit in a room and hear about it and remember our loved ones who have passed and the ways that they died. And so that's the first step. PIMC has done some programs with death doulas and other sorts of programs where, and Robert usually does once a year, day-long workshop on death and dying. And often we talk about different documents and different planning and things like that when we do these workshops. So look out for those. I think we could do more. The hardest thing, it seems, is coming to face this process of aging and being sick and eventually dying as not this crescendo to a moment. And also getting our mindset changed from our best years, our most productive years are the years when we aren't aging, becoming ill. So looking at the whole life continuum without some sort of peak that we reach and then pass. Does that make sense? We always have something to hold on to. And aging terrifies a lot of us. I can tell you, my worst fear is having a really serious diagnosis and being kind of incapacitated or severely disabled and not having people around me for companionship. That's a lot of our worst fears. And so most of us aren't facing that currently, but when we do, because that may happen, knowing the answer to the question of what is living and what is dying for me. We know what it is clinically, the cessation of the heart and the breathing. Some people would say, if I can't sense the world around me or I can't communicate with people I love, then that to me is the same as not being alive anymore. And you can craft your medical wishes in a way that lets others know about that before it happens, which I know seems really, really far away, but most of what I do when we're consulted in the hospital is coming to the bedside of someone who can't speak for themselves, and their friends and family are in this position of trying to figure out what would they want in this circumstance, and also making decisions from a place of fear of, I'm going to lose this person. So it's kind of a complicated answer to your question, but to start to consider for yourself, what is living and what is dying to me? Can I get that written down somewhere, usually in an advance directive? More importantly, can I tell a person who would be making decisions for me, or the people who would be making decisions for me, how I feel about this? And as one ages, to really have those things in place, written, so that hospitals can find them if needed.
I don't think so. Kids are going to be in momentarily. Go ahead.
I'll be brief. That's a great question. So most major hospital systems have a palliative medicine department. I was working in Kaiser before I moved to Bend, and we have palliative medicine outpatient and inpatient. So if you find yourself in the hospital, or your loved one does, you can ask for a palliative care consult. If you are a part of a medical system, you can ask your primary care doctor, how could I get a palliative care consult in the clinic? Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Erin. You're so beautifully articulate and heartfelt in how you speak of this. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Mhm.
Can I put an email in the chat in case anyone has questions? Great. ESCHNEID1 @gmail.
There is a brief question in the chat.
There's a question in the chat.
I think we shouldn't do another question. We need to get ready for the kids. And also, there's a couple of things I want to say. One is, I haven't created a date, but this, I think it's summer. I'm going to be offering a one-day Remembering Death workshop. And also a month from today, 4 weeks from today, Mish Makazi, one of our other teacher trainees, who is a death doula and who has done quite a lot of death doula work with children and is a fantastic artist. And her art will be up in the living room for a week before and after. She will be in this seat speaking with us about her work and her understanding of how to move forward into this terrain. They, pardon me, slow to learn. So I'm surprised the kids aren't champing at the bit. Maybe there is time for that question, and we can stop if. Want to read it?
I don't depend on hospitals for this sort of thing at all. The question was, how can we be sure hospitals can find the advance directive? So I have an advance directive. I have one in the safe. I have one with the will. I have electronic copies with my 2 chosen representatives. So the most important thing by far and away is when you realize how you feel about this and what you would want in certain circumstances, that an advance directive actually pretty clearly goes through. So you can look up Oregon advance directive and it'll take you through like 3 or 4 scenarios. Fill that out, tell your loved ones, and then send a copy to the people who will make your decisions for you if needed.
Excellent. Thank you, Erin.
Hi, kids.
Thank you for doing the AV stuff.
Did you
Very
have any
important as well.
fun today? Thanks, everyone, for your attention.
Can I sit here, please? Oh, oh my gosh. Is that? All right, everybody. Did you have fun? Oh my gosh, you're all painted. Oh, how lovely and sparkly. Oh, I'm jealous of the sparkles. I love sparkles. Well, you want to hold hands? Maybe you guys can hold hands too if you want. You don't have to. And is there anyone who would like to lead the song? May all beings be happy. Nope. I guess it's me. So you ready? We'll sing the song and then may all beings be happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And then I will count 1, 2, 3, and you get to make a wish. You might decide what your wish is now. And then we blow out the candle. You ready? May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Got your wish? You guys have a wish too? 1, 2, 3, blow. Yay, it worked. So, please come and join us for tea and coffee and goodies and some fine conversation.